This will be the third attempt that I try to make this video. Hopefully it works this time. I'm going to make it shorter than I did the previous couple times, in hopes that that might help. And you know, sometimes we get to feeling like perhaps it's the powers that be, or even God or the devil. And if it's the devil, he doesn't want this information to come out, and it encourages me to try again. And if it's God, he wanted me to make it better. And hopefully each subsequent time it does get a little bit better, this being the third. So without further delay, we'll be looking at the 7 courthouses of Chicago, beginning in 1837. Now, they attribute the year 1837 to the birth of Chicago. And here we can see in 1837 to 1842, we have the first City Hall. And boom, the city begins in 1837, and we have a City Hall, little shops, buildings, really a full-blown city right away, according to this depiction. And this was the finest building in Chicago, and it was not eclipsed by anything of its kind in the West. Now, the second City Hall, 1842 to 1848. Now, in my opinion, looks like a step backwards. This looking like more beautiful architecture and quality building style than this one. This one looking very Old West. And we see some cowboys here. Some cowboys walking up the kind of dangerous looking stairs. And this building equally was used for a short period of time, about 5 years. 1, 2, and now we go on to 3. Third City Hall really looking amazing. And the Old Market Hall was erected by the city. So this baby was used again for 5 years. So a very squeamish and unsettled people, every 5 years they need to build a new city hall, even though we don't see any change in the mode of transportation or any signs of any advancement with these people, yet every 5 years they need a new city hall building, and they just seem to get more and more glorious. Here we go with Antiquitech, and this building seeming like, based on proportions, that it should be about twice as tall if we're to consider the architectural symmetry. And yet, this building, 5 years of usage. Now nothing has changed. We're still in wagons, horses, dirt roads, and yet it's time for building number 4. And building number 4 in 1853, so already 4 buildings in about 20 years, nothing satisfying them for more than 5. And here we have the 4th City Hall. And for some reason they built stairs up to the 2nd floor of this City Hall. And this beauty was constructed in 1851, and construction lasted till 1853. So 2 years. 2 years they throw this thing up. And this thing was already pretty remarkable. I mean, really, for these people to build something like this is quite a stretch of the imagination. You know, to build something like this, now this we can expect. But this is pretty amazing, and yet not amazing enough for these people. They had to build this. And they seem to enjoy this one a little bit longer, but still quickly became unsatisfied with this building that was constructed in only 2 years. And some amazing spires in the background here, and Really remarkable. And now we move on to the 5th City Hall. 5th City Hall. As if this is not glorious enough. To present day, this would be fine for any city. And yet, no. In 1873, they construct building number 5. And now I want you to notice the people have not changed. Here we go. Here is a depiction according to the narrative. And, just very primitive, very few people. Horse, buggy, and really not needing a building like this, or a building like this, or even like this, even in present times. I mean, think about your city and county building. There's really not that much going on, more administrative purposes than actual people in these government buildings. And nevertheless, we go to building number 5 in 1873, which they tell us was constructed hastily around a large elevated water tank. And the building was known as the Old Rookery and served as the City Hall till 1885. So here we go, this short amount of time. The building is not even old, according to the narrative, and yet they're calling it the Old Rookery. And they're ready to move out. The city and county jointly advertise for plans for a new city hall and county building. No real reason why. I mean, this thing is just massive. Again, for these people, the people have not changed. And yet their architecture is just blossoming overnight. Literally throwing up buildings like this in 2 years, and completely unsatisfied, as any inheritors would be. Ungrateful, but clearly unrealistic. Now we get to the beautiful building that I featured at the end of my last video, and just absolutely amazing. 1885 to 1905. So here we go. I mean, we just throw this building up. 1885, even though there was photography around, we don't get any construction photos. And this baby is built in 3 years. 3 years, so here we go. These kind of people, unsatisfied with this building, decided to build a new city hall. Unsatisfied with this one. And with these horses and these dinky, frail, and fragile little wheels, they threw a building like this up in 3 years. Believe it or not. And suddenly they have wireless train cars moving about. Really remarkable. And as if that's not enough, this story gets even stranger. As soon as the building was finished, its limitations became evident. The interior, with its high ceilings and small windows, oddly sized rooms, and long, drafty, dark corridors, made for inconvenience and discomfort. Secondly, because the building had been under construction for so long, 3 years, mind you, it was already overcrowded before it was finished, and some employees had to be moved. The inadequacies of the recently opened building made it evident that consideration must be given to the need for a new city hall and a new county building. Of course, this was inadequate for them. The city didn't actually have the money to replace it, however, since they had just blown about $100 million on the mess. Fortunately, in 1905, the building sank 6 inches, causing a gas pipe to rupture, which created an explosion that blew the roof off the building. That gave the city an excuse to build a proper city hall, and the county moved in 1907. And here's a look at the gas pipeline damage that blew the roof off the building. Really remarkable. And this is a photo of the demolition. Boom. 1904. So again, the building that took 3 years to build. And here we go, quickly demolishing it. And quickly building City Hall of Chicago number 7. Till present day. And here we go. For some reason, not looking like a picture, looking like a rendering, but actually the building looking like a picture and the people and trolleys looking like renderings. Not sure, but what I can see is that here's the new building, and however we can see the old building right behind it, so I'm not sure what's going on. They told us after the roof blew off they began construction of the new building. However, it's sitting right here. They're both sitting here. And in fact, if we go back to this picture of the explosion, we already see the new building is already built. So I'm not sure if they just think people are not going to notice or put 2 and 2 together with this pretty ridiculous story. But here it is. And when it comes to building number 7, there are no photos of its construction, and there is no story. Whereas, they gave us a little story here for each building, and here we just jump straight to number 7. These architects were awarded a contract for the design and planning of the Cook County building. So really amazing. And I wanted to devote a few moments to this picture. And I originally found this picture in Wikipedia, looking at the tallest buildings of the old world. And it was originally for a video more based on the Washington Monument. There it is in the background. And somebody commented and asked me which capital city this was, as my thumbnail said the nation's capital. And they had asked which nation was this the capital of. And yet, this may have been what all capitals, all throughout the world, look like, and entire cities looking like this. And maybe not necessarily so jammed packed together, but this is exactly what we see scattered around, and it is so to this day, that each one of these buildings is scattered around the world. And what we see in time is that they get less and less, and one burns, and one is torn down, and so on and so forth. And this represents the civilization of the past. And we don't build like this today because we really don't know how. These are not our buildings, and we have simply repurposed all of them. And we get enough events like this, enough fires sweeping through, and pretty soon entire areas are gone. And we build cheap buildings to replace them. And the ones that remain have silly designations. And these designations change from one thing to another over time. And then I wanted to focus on this image that I featured in a past video. And what I found amazing was this clock. Now this is just an image I've saved, so it's not going to come in as well as it did on Gallica. But this clock was just remarkable, and this was built in 1385, according to the narrative. Really fascinating clock. And I really didn't notice any pigeons in any of these photos. And here let's have a little look at this Antiquitech device in an old depiction, and the date we're given 1819. Not sure, but we can see by the people that it is a pretty early time period. And I want to pay notice to this gate around this supposed fountain. Once again, now the gate looking different than the other picture that we looked at, but still serving the purpose to keep people out and really looking extra remarkable, much more so than the other picture. This corner feature and even the Antiquitech on these buildings. Little star feature here, here, and here a modern look. And as somewhat of an afterthought, I found it remarkable that at the very same time I was researching this beautiful fountain, the Schöner Brunnen fountain in Nuremberg, Germany, I was also doing research on the Nuremberg, the mythical city of Nuremberg. And is there a connection? The fabled city of Nuremberg was said to have spires of gold on their buildings. And here we see this in Nuremberg, Germany. And really, when I originally featured it, I had not had any reference to the size of this fountain. And really, it's a monster. And now, getting a little idea, at least in this depiction, of how it must have pumped water. Here we see it pumping, and very remarkable, and certainly unnecessary for a people, a simple people of this time. So that's it. I do hope you enjoyed, and have a blessed day, and please like, comment, and subscribe. And I hope when I press save that it saves.